Yeah, man, it's been a long time since we've chatted.
Yeah, right?
Now look at you, you're a legend.
Oh no, absolutely not. Not even close.
No,
Yeah,
you're
you
definitely
remember
legendary.
you remember back in the I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, I don't even know how many years was that, but um I think you were doing those classes and you were we actually work on something together. I forgot what the name of the game. Um but I think during that time you were sort of hooking up your students with like work and you were sort of like overseeing some of
Yeah,
that work as well. You remember that?
yeah. I don't remember how long ago that was,
Yeah, that
but
was like
I'm kind of doing it again. I got this new gig where I'm looking to hire a bunch of illustrators,
that's nice.
and I think a good handful of them are going to be brought on. So, which is wonderful. It's always
Absolutely.
great to be able to help the very people that support the educational platform that I did.
Yeah,
So
yep, yep.
anywhere and anytime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Because you've been for a couple of years, you've been sort of like almost sort of doing your own thing type of thing. Because you were building your own games and um,
Oh
after
yeah, I'm
that,
still doing that. I'm
yeah, yeah,
building
yeah.
a game right now as we speak. Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. Um, when did that change happen? Was it after Blizzard?
Yeah. I mean, dude, the history and biography of my life is wild. I don't know. Like, because right now, like, I don't know if you remember, I might have said this to one of the classes you might have been in, but I know every once in a while I'll talk about this where, like, if I was to go 5 years ago
Yeah,
and see where I am today, I don't know. Like, you hear that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm
yeah.
like,
You have no
bro, what?
idea. Yeah, yeah.
So 5 years ago, there was no COVID, there was no like
Right.
lockdowns. So like and we didn't have like celebrity. Well, actually, we did. We had a celebrity president, and then 5 years before that, I would be like, "There's no way we'll have someone like the uh, the guy who was in Celebrity Apprentice be the leader of the free world." you know. And then in terms of my career, it's just as wild, right? Like I don't know what I was like. I didn't think that I would be art directing about 10 years ago and doing
Yeah, yeah.
that kind of stuff. I didn't think that I would want to take a back seat on that stuff. And then 5 years before that, like I didn't know that I would ever work for Riot or some of these big companies. And then 5 years before that, I don't even know I was going to be a concept artist at all.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and then so for me, it's yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns. But I can say this: one thing that I know has been consistent for my entire career. I love to teach and help other artists.
Yeah.
That has never changed, and that's been pretty reliable and consistent. I think that's just who I'm going to be forever and always. I'm going to be an educator in some way, shape, or form. And then on top of that, I think you know, me wanting to build my own thing is something I constantly have been trying. I've tried it a few times with a couple failures here and there. But with this latest one, I found somebody who I think has just as much work ethic, has just as much um, vision, and you know, like same taste. All like I try to make my own games by myself, but it's just a lot of work, and I
Yeah.
already work a lot. And it's just like, bro, I can't do everything. But with this other person, he's a great engineer and designer, so he's front loading a lot of that heavy lift. Where I just draw, and I'm very quick at drawing. So then when I'm busy, I can still be very productive for our project. Like he's like, hey, I need like all these assets. I'm all right, and literally next day I have it all done and drawn. Because I could do it anywhere. I have my iPad that I take with me wherever I go. So
Right.
yeah, it's just I think that's also consistent. Like I'm always chasing that kind of true ownership of some project, something that is mine that I can call mine. And then outside of that, like in terms of what I'm doing my day to day, yeah, who the hell knows? Like my wife and I don't like we I had a vasectomy because my wife was like, oh, no more babies. And now we're like, maybe we should try to get another baby. Maybe we could adopt. It's like what? So like, 5 years from now I have 20 kids. You'll be like, what the? But I'll still be teaching, and I'll still be trying to like make my own thing potentially. Maybe I already did, maybe it's a hit and I am doing that, who knows? But yeah, I could say that that's pretty consistent. But yeah, I'm always trying to help out the students. I'm always
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
work on stuff like that. That's almost always a baseline for me in terms of, but everything else I have no fucking clue, bro.
yeah.
I'm trying to figure this shit out still too. I'm
I,
with you,
I
man.
I would have never thought that. I would have never thought that. So you don't really have like, I mean, you probably do, but it's sort of like you go with, you know, whatever sort of life throws at you, for a lack of a better word, type thing. You don't have like a 10-year
Yeah.
plan or like a 20-year plan type thing, or
Nah, man. I mean, I try to do a little bit of that. And the best way I can explain this, the best way I can describe this is simply this. There's a story that I once heard, which was about, imagine like World War II, okay, and you're a soldier or potentially a soldier. You're given two options. In one scenario, you are going to the war. You're going to go fight the greatest war of all time, right? World War II against Nazi Germany, and you're most likely and most certainly going to die. In fact, in this hypothetical, you're going to die, but you would have fought that great fight. You would have fought that big fight for the greater good. You would have had probably small impact or small recognition, rather, um, but you would have had huge impact potentially because if you were part of this conflict. The alternate is that you can stay home and take care of your dying grandmother, right? She's on her deathbed. She's got maybe a year or two to go. If you go to war, again, there's no certainty that you'd come back. And sadly, you know, if you do come back alive, she'd probably be gone. And so in this scenario, you stay home. You don't go to the war. And you have little to no impact to the greater war, but huge impact to your
yeah,
grandmother, right? And for me, in the last decade, for sure, I've been living this life of trying to kind of live the life of the person who's taking care of their grandmother. And so, um, there's only so much I can do to be like a career driven person that also, as a consequence, makes me not around my children, my wife.
yeah,
I remember I went to GDC one time and the guy told me the story, right? Because he said, you know, listen, you only really can be great at one thing. You can't be great at two things. People say that they can, but this is not true. You can be good at another thing. You can be good at multiple things. You can be okay at a lot of things, right? But to be great, like like a champion, like a master, you can only do one thing. There's only so much time in the day. And so he said, if you're really great in your career, then you're probably not a great father. You're not
right,
a great husband. You might be a good husband. You might be a good father. And if you're okay with that, then cool. You know, there's plenty of people who live and die by that kind of mantra of like that their career is their life. But vice versa is true. Like you could be a great father and husband, but good at your career. You know, be okay at your career. And I felt that hard. I was like, that makes a lot of sense because I feel that way when I like right now. I'm like working double time to work on this personal project, and then I'm also working full time as this AD. And dude, like from the moment I wake up, and I wake up early. I wake up like 6 or 7 in the morning, and then like after this call, like it's 8 p.m. I'm probably gonna spend another hour and a half like
oh
doing
yeah,
work because I'm trying
oh
to do a
yeah,
good job at this project I just got on. And for me, that's like 90% of my day is like right here working.
yeah. Same here.
And so it's a fact that I'm just not around my children. So yesterday I actually took a bit of a half day. I took like most of the day off. I worked at the night and I worked early morning, but I hung out with my son because we went to a Rubik's Cube competition this last weekend. And I think it rekindled both of us of like, oh yeah, dude, hanging out with my dad is awesome. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to like be around and actually chill with my kiddos. And it goes in waves. So like right now, I'm like back on that, like pushing too hard, but I have to do it because we have to make some changes in our life, and that just requires me to work my ass off for the
Yeah,
next few months. Um, but once I get that kind of ironed out, my goal is to come right back down and just do the bare minimum to do a good job at my job. Right, I'm setting all the stakes to
yeah,
be a pretty great ED, so that it's mostly automated and I don't have to like be in every conversation. And but when you're jumped on like a new project, you have to do a lot of that stuff. So to me, it's like, yeah, it's waves. So I don't, because I can't just be all in full time until I'm like a quadrillionaire, right? Then I can totally just retire as an artist and just be a full time dad all day,
Right.
every day, you know? Because your kids are only kids once. And so that's kind of where I'm at, you know, like philosophically, mentally. And I've been there for a while. I've been there like, I would say close to a decade now, maybe a little bit less,
Yeah.
but definitely closer to a decade. Uh, so I've been working really hard to stop working so hard, is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I could just be
Yeah.
around my children.
I totally understand. I mean, I don't have kids, but I totally understand the trying hard to not working too hard. And that reminds me of a quote that I recently saw. I think it was either Facebook, or Instagram that said, it's a little debatable, but it said that the only people that will remember you staying up late to work will be your children. And so
Yeah,
that's sort
dude.
of like it made a lot of sense, you know. But I'm sort of like, I'm also thinking like in your case, I mean, you've been in the industry for over a decade now, right? A little bit over a decade.
16 years.
Yeah.
16 years.
Because you're already past that. I think you're already past that phase of building up your brand or your reputation in order for you to take those
Yeah, yeah.
steps so you can, you know, um, stay at home more and that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
what was that the reason
Yeah,
why you went to?
100%.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's it. I agree with you.
Yeah. So you were in, what was it, Central America or South America?
Oh, yeah, we're going back. We were in
Oh, you're going back?
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Nice, man.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, we the reasons why we left. Okay, let me back up. The reason why we went was because it was like in the middle of COVID. We were locked down in like a place in Southern California,
Right.
and dude, it was bad news bears, right? It was just like we were spending all this money to live basically in a concrete prison. And for those of you who are like curious my position on this, I definitely believe COVID is real. And I have stories about like, because when we were in Nicaragua, we saw a lot of what actually COVID can do, right?
Mm,
Because they weren't a well built infrastructure like in the States or a
yeah.
lot of places in Europe. Anyway, um, but it didn't. I mean, many people can empathize with this. Like, it didn't stop people from feeling cabin fever and just kind of trapped in where they were. Like, that was very real. And so part of me was like, look, I don't need to be anywhere. Like, more and more companies are going remote because of this pandemic. And because of that, I have more job opportunities. And so I'm like, look, I can just go anywhere. And my wife's from Central America. So I was like, why don't we just go to Central America, Nicaragua, and we'll live there for a little bit, see how it goes, And what's great about it too, it's really hot climate,
Mm-hmm.
and I know like COVID has a hard time in that kind of environment, and it's like where we're gonna live is like pretty wide open, So we're not close to most people. It's kind of like a pseudo locked out, like by design, which is true. Like where we were was pretty chill. Like there was very few COVID cases, and it was very community based. So whenever people did get it, like it was crazy. Like you just get wind of it, and so there was just kind of a natural quarantine thing. So it was kind of awesome, right? And so we were basically just living in the tropics,
Yeah. Yeah.
while
Yeah.
everyone else is trapped, and it was just way more affordable. And it was beautiful. Like we would go to the beach every day and just hang out, and I'll just work from home. So it was pretty awesome. And the only challenges were because of that lack of infrastructure I was talking about earlier. You know, you might think that things like having unstable internet or like electricity going out every so often, especially where we lived, it was more like a farm town. You think that would be my biggest complaint? Actually, I was fine with it. I was like, I'm pretty practical. I could figure stuff out. So I was doing classes like in thunderstorms where there's like a blackout, and I just had like this power generator, yeah, like funding or fueling my Wi-Fi router, so I could keep teaching in the darkness of my house. So you think stuff like that would be annoying? I think most people would think that would be annoying, but
Yeah.
it wasn't for me. What really bothered me was like the health stuff because
Mm,
a lot of these homes were built not so well, and so there would be mold in the walls, and I would be like, "Hey, there's mold in your house." Like I remember one house that we rented, it like there was the whole ceiling like was just covered in mold, like on the inside. Because they were like, nah, it's probably not mold. And then so we hired an external person to come in. They drilled a hole. They looked in. They're like, oh my god, yeah, this whole place is like molded. Specifically, the one of the living rooms. So we all ended up living in one room, and uh, yeah, my kids were just getting sick from that kind of stuff, and it was just
Mm.
kind of getting really scary. Yeah, my baby boy, he got like chicken pox. It was
Yeah.
just like a lot of stuff, and there's just like no, because we didn't live near the city. Maybe if we were in the city, it would be much more reasonable, but because we didn't, it was a big challenge. And and the next thing was that my son, who has autism, there's nothing out there for someone like him, at least where we lived. Um, so I was like, dude, we just got to cut back to the States for a bit and kind of sort out some of this stuff. So that's what we did. We came back. I looked at best states for children with autism. Colorado was number one. Douglas County, one of the best counties. We moved to Douglas County, Colorado. And it's been great, except the weather's like super dry,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're all like coming. We came from like the tropic jungle,
Yep.
like humid heat beach life to like a winter paradise. It's still nice, but it's just like a winter. It's like I don't know what it is in Celsius, but it's like negative 30 or negative 15 degrees out here, which is like super
Right
cold
now.
for your Fahrenheit. Yeah, not anymore. Like it goes up and down. Today is probably getting closer to freezing, which is 30 degrees
Right.
Fahrenheit,
Right.
close to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, yeah, so it's wild, but it's like dry.
Yeah.
So all of my children, all of my little Central American children, my Central American babies are cracking. They're turning into tortilla chips, and so like, um, so we were just like, okay, my son, he got on track, and so we're thinking, okay, let's just move back to Nicaragua. But I said, let's live in the city this time because the city will definitely have more of that kind of infrastructure that we're used to, and then we're going to build our home out there where we loved. So that way, if there's mold in the walls, I'll just have it fixed.
Right.
I'm not going to fix somebody else's house. Does it make
Right.
sense?
Right.
And so that's kind of the plan. But that's why we left. We left because it was just, yeah, it was just kind of like not enough of the infrastructure we needed to support my large family in terms of like health and resources for my child who has autism. But living in the city, we already found people who could help my son. And then in terms of um, like, infrastructure, the city has pretty great infrastructure. We stay there quite a bit, especially if we live in kind of more of the wealthier areas.
Yeah.
It will probably be well kept, and I say wealthy, but it's like to like American dollars, like a wealthy house could be like $1,500 a month in rent, and
Right.
it's
Right.
like a
Right. Yeah.
5 to
Yeah.
6 bedroom house with its own
Yeah.
backyard,
Yeah.
3 car garage, like it's huge house, and so, um, and that's like, dude, that's so much cheaper than what I'm paying right now,
Yes, I bet.
you know,
I bet
like, and
that's how
then
Puerto Rico used
that's
to
just
be.
the rent,
Yeah.
yeah, so. Anyway, that's kind of the heart and the soul of the story of why we left, and then plan to go back to Nicaragua.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's kind of the purpose of that.
that's very similar so I'm originally from Puerto Rico, which is tropical and
Oh yeah, Puerto
all this
Rico is
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah. But it used to be like that where you will find like I remember many years ago, my brother bought a house like a 3-2 house. He paid like I don't know. He was paying like $900 a month, and I'm and I'm in the states, paying double that for like a 1 bedroom apartment with
For
amenities.
like a studio.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Did you have to get a roommate?
Yeah, yeah. And but I mean, still Puerto Rico, like Puerto Rico is a great place in terms of like the island, like it's beautiful, great beaches and all that. But like for example, like it hit very similar to when you were talking about the health things, because like in Puerto Rico, there's not um, at least like a year ago or something like that, there wasn't like any specialist in the island. So like for example, if you had a car accident and you had like a head trauma, like there's nobody in Puerto
Yeah,
Rico that will deal with that. So like you had to either
yeah,
so that's those sort of things like they're very rare to happen, but if it happens to you or like to your parents or something like that, it's just something like that I'd rather not risk for that. But
Yeah, man. And that's ironic because Puerto Rico is part of the states, so
yep,
you would think that there would be some support,
yep,
but
yep.
it's oh no, wait, they're too close to the border and they're brown. So let's just pretend they're not part of America. We'll take all the benefits, you know, all the benefits of them being an island off of the coast of America and all the tax incentives and everything, but true support for the natives, nah, they don't need any of that, do
Yeah,
they?
it's all good. No,
Yeah, it's sad, but it's true, bro. Right?
yeah,
Like
it
it's
is true.
genuinely,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I hear you, man. I hear you. I think for me, and that's a good point. I want to make it very clear that it's not like America is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has a lot of like true, like we complain a lot about infrastructure, but like when you live in a different country, like
Oh yeah.
that, like I
You
lived
know.
in, like it is crazy how like effective we are at building the things that we've built and how things are interconnected. Not all the places in the states, but like if you think of like any of the cities or any kind of towns within close to the cities, it is incredible.
Right.
And really, there's nothing like it. Especially like living in California, there's really nothing like California anywhere in the world. And and for me, I'm still a Cali boy, and whenever I go traveling, it just becomes more and more obvious to me that California is truly unique. Just like any other place that might be unique, like Florence is unique to its culture and like its history of all these
Right.
like
Right.
freaking ancient ass buildings. And California is the same. Like it's just like this place that has like almost perfect weather all around. It has like literally every kind of food you can ever want to try is like there. Um, it has beach towns. It has major cities. It's got literally anything that you're looking for. It's got like rural towns. It's got middle of nowhere towns, and it makes so much income that it can be considered like one of the six most wealthiest countries,
Mm.
not just like a state. and and a lot of that is just true. It's incredible and uh, very diverse, like tons of types of people, which is wonderful. It's beautiful
Yeah.
to be surrounded by all sorts of types of people from all around the world. But that shit is fucking expensive, though, bro. It's like it is like you're saying you're paying two times as much as Puerto Rico. In
Yeah.
California, you'd be paying like five
Like four
times,
or
right?
five times.
Like if
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're depending on where you live, if you live in the greater LA area, you're fucked. Um, and then if you live in like the OC area, it's pretty bad as well. And so for me, it's yeah, definitely. I don't want to make it seem like oh yeah, just like look at this like $1,500 mansion. Well, I mean, it's still in a kind of an impoverished country. It's still in a place that doesn't have all the kinds of things you would see in America,
Right.
but it's also like beautiful in its own unique ways as well. A
Yeah.
lot of the people are very humble, very modest types of people. I think there's like Nicaragua specifically is almost like little to no violent crimes. There's a lot of petty crime, just because most people are kind of broke, so it makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Right.
But I prefer that than like violent crimes. Um, and so for me, like for instance, my kids they go to Colorado school and they do shooter training
Really?
emergency. You know what
Oh,
I mean?
like
Mass
okay,
shooter
okay, gotcha,
training,
gotcha, gotcha. Yeah.
which is like, oh, there's a mass shooter. This is what you do when somebody comes and tries to kill you with a gun. Like that's just not going to happen in Nicaragua. I remember when there was that tragic mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. My driver was like, because I was asking him, I was like, "What do you think about it?" He's like, "That's fucking crazy." He's like, "The gun that kid used to mow down those children, like our army doesn't even have."
Yeah.
You know, and I
Right.
was like,
Right.
"I know, dude." And so everything is just different. It's not easy to say like one thing is better than the other, but it is not obvious to me how a different country can just generally be better than the other. It depends on what your interests are.
Right.
Because when we lived in Nicaragua, just to be because I realize you have some questions you want to ask me, so we'll get to those.
No, no, no. This is
What?
this is a pretty
It's a
chill conversation.
informal.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This is super
Okay. Okay.
casual. If we got into the questions we don't like, that's how I
No,
want
I
to keep
thought
it.
you had some good questions that you wanted to ask, so I think you should at least ask a couple of them. Anyway, the the so when we were living in Nicaragua, like we were like truly people because sometimes the internet would go down, sometimes the power would go out. So, all right,
Yeah.
well, let's go to the beach and just hang out for the day.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
I had more core memories in like a year living there than I did for like the many years I lived in Irvine. And I can tell you one of them that's one of my favorites, where uh, we were on this boat. We were giving this tour to like get to this private beach. So we pulled up on the boat to this private beach, and the shore it was like a crescent shaped beach. So there was like no waves. It was pretty chill. And the guy that took us there was like, "Hey, man, all right, you guys want to go to the beach?" But we were like parked about like a good 100 meters away from the shore, and I was like, "Oh, what? You want us to swim there?" And he's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Oh, dude, that's freaking awesome." And my wife and daughter did not want to do it, so they had a little kayak that they took. But me and my sons, I remember my younger son Julian, we jumped into the water because he was so excited. He thought that was super cool too. So we started
Yeah.
swimming, and I could tell halfway he was starting to get tired. And I was like, "It's okay, just like grab me from the back, and I'll just swim with you." And I was just thinking, like, how cool is this moment that my son's experiencing, And then they found like crabs, and we were like playing with like some games on the beach. And like I said, it was like nobody else was there. It was like calm waters. It was pretty cool, man. It was pretty awesome, and there was just lots of that, dude. There's lots and lots of, and not just all wonderful stories. Like there was stories about like how, like I got our car stuck in the mud because we have to cross a river to get to my son's skate park that he likes to go skating at. You know what I mean?
That's nice.
And so it's like that's kind of cool, man. My son
Yeah.
experienced like some turmoil as well. It's not like all like when we lived in Irvine, I was like, what? Like the worst that can happen is you couldn't buy a video game because I told you
Right.
not
Right.
to. you know, like I don't know, like or like you were to go take your iPad away. Like no, this is like some real stuff. I remember I stalled because all the cars were stick shift, so I stalled on a hill and we were rolling downwards, like stuff like this. Like there's just lots of those types of moments as well. And yeah, I think that's wonderful because when I grew up, I had a lot of that. Not by choice though, because we were broke by parents, and for me, it was like there was just a lot of life moments.
Yeah.
My kids catching little frogs and holding them in their hands and stuff like this. We adopted two stray cats that just happened to be in our yard, and they're just wild ass cats. So one of the cats brought like a dead chicken to our to our daughter as a as an offering, and she was like, "Oh my god, there's no head," and it's just cool, man. It was just cool. It was cool to see a lot of that and experience a lot of that. And that like was all within a year. There's like so many memories. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to coming back to some of that. I think when we're in the States, you just like again, because I have to work so hard just to maintain this lifestyle in wherever we live because I have so many kids, that it's much like one mentorship class was enough to basically like pay for 2 months of living in Nicaragua. Just one class. I
Right.
don't have to have multiple classes. And so I was able to do a lot of that. I was able to just teach mostly and just work part time on a lot of things at some point. And so I look forward to getting back to that because I really don't like working all the time, every
Yeah.
time, for the reasons I laid out in the beginning of this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
hangout that we have. And so yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to paint a picture of like Nicaragua is like this freaking um, perfect utopia, or like in your case, like Puerto Rico. Like it's just different. There's going to be different things, right? But because of those differences, it brings out a different result.
Yeah.
And depending on what you're into, you know, one actually might bring more happiness than the other. I think out here in the States or any other Western society, um, in terms of like a high level industrialization, consumerism, doom scrolling, like this is just part of the deal. Like it's impossible to break through it if you just live. Like I have like this thing on my phone where I literally check and track my hours on my phone because I realize that even though I'm being productive, I'm still like on my screen more than times than I need to be. And so I'm just like starting to just not even be on my phone anymore
Yeah. Yeah.
at all. Like literally, I just don't use it for anything because it is obviously designed to get you stuck in there. Like don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Like they have like literally psychiatrists and UX designers that are like the best in the world that can get in your mind and keep you there. So you have to fight against the current. And I consider myself pretty strong willed, and I'm like still spending an hour on like Instagram. Like that's 1 hour more than I needed to be on Instagram.
Right, right, right.
Right? Like
Yeah,
truly.
yeah, yeah.
And I caught this when I had TikTok. I don't have TikTok anymore because I remember like I was like, why don't I feel like I have time to do shit? Like what happened? And I checked the screen time. It was like 4 hours on TikTok. So I consider myself pretty strong willed, pretty disciplined, and I was like sucked in. And I was like, because TikTok's fucking hilarious, dude. If you get that in the right algorithm, dude, it's really fun to be there, you know? And so but don't, yeah, make no mistake, guys. Like this is not for your betterment of your health. I don't even think it's worth leisure use. You know, truly.
Mhm.
If I want to waste my time doing something like have a leisure activity, I'd prefer it being like playing board games with my family
Right,
or
right, right.
hanging out with my friends at like I always enjoy that way more than being on my phone scrolling through. Like I enjoy like I went white river rafting with my closest friends, and that like none of us had our phones for like hours, and we were fine. We were having a blast. We were just joking. We went down the river. We jumped off a cliff. Like it's core memories, right? And I can't remember the last fucking reel I saw. you know, you know what I mean? Like, can you name that last reel? Like, probably not. And it's like, well, that's because it's not there for
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
longevity. It's there just to keep you like just truly trapped. So yeah, for me, it's that is kind of the difference that I'm starting to recognize. Because coming back, I'm like I'm back to the grind. Like it's crazy how fast. I thought this new perspective will snap me out of it, but it didn't. And so that's what I'm saying. I don't think I'm even immune to this, folks. I'm saying you might have to insert yourself into these situations
Yep.
to kind of make it force wholesome lifestyle upon your life versus trying to like, oh no, I'll just be able to do it, right? And it's like no, when you're surrounded by everybody else is just locked, stun locked by their phone, and everyone else is stun locked by their grind. It's hard not to. It's hard to like separate. You have to
Yeah,
truly
yeah,
like live in the wilderness.
yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, man, for reals. And I that would be my advice to other artists is to truly get outside and touch grass. Um, yeah, I mean, you hear that a lot, but like literally, it's a pragmatic strategy too, right? If you think about it, because your mind and your body are literally one thing; they're not separate things. It's only like humans that have created a definition between the mind and the body as if they're different, which makes sense. I get it because it's important to think of the brain and your consciousness as something else. I think that that is worth defining differently than like your finger muscles. I get it, but like your microbiome, that stuff that's in your gut, can like affect the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like out of shape, that will affect the way you think. And so if you're just stuck on a screen all day, um, just drawing, and you don't move other than to go use the restroom or get something to eat, um, that will bring consequences of like anxiety, depression, frustration. Like you'll get easily perturbed at simple things. But if you go outside and like run a little bit or just lift some weights or just literally just walk for an hour or so, it's crazy how much value you get from that. That will then bring clarity to your
Yep,
brain,
yep.
and then you can start drawing better. You become more creative. So it seems counterproductive, right? It seems like you should just sit there and just work and just brute force the art. But in my experience, um, it is really good to be healthy and have like a healthy mindset, eat better foods and these types of things. So yeah, that like this wholesome advice about like living a simpler life is actually, I believe, pragmatic for us artists as well. Truly, I think it's smart to kind of just be actually active as part of your art routine, not
Yep.
just like your health routine, like just being able to go outside and experience social events so you can have more experiences in the world that will reflect in your artwork. You'll use that as a tool. It will be like it will come out naturally. It happens to me all the time. I always, whenever I'm concepting something, I'm always thinking about something that I just experienced years ago. Like there's a moment in my life that I'm, oh yeah, I remember this instance. This will be perfect for this concept idea these people are asking to do. So I'm a big fan of like telling people to go outside and touch grass.
Oh yeah,
Truly,
yeah.
truly. Like
That
outside of like my whole philosophical like exodus of trying to not work so hard, I generally think even moderations of what I just suggested is good for people to do because it helps them be better at everything else that they want to be good at. So but yeah, that's my that's my TED talk about living in the jungle.
it's recorded, so we can put it up. Um, no, but that's actually my number one uh, suggestion for artists outside of art. To work out because I think um,
Yeah.
it's just so healthy. And you were talking about what you're consuming, like food and stuff like that, but also like what you're consuming in social media. Like it actually affects the way you think too.
Yeah.
If you're first spending hours on that, like that could just distort or poison or feed in the wrong way or the right way as well.
Yeah.
The way
It's
you
like an intellectual diet, right?
right,
Like
right,
it's
right.
like your mental diet. Yeah.
Yeah,
100% agree.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually. It's great to mention it because me and my wife are also sort of in that thinking on that realm of simplifying our lives and doing a lot of stuff because
Awesome,
for the
dude.
past 10 years I have been just like this, just working, trying to build the skill and all that, which I don't regret, to be honest, because I think that was like I think that's a phase that you sort of have to go through in order to be able to
Yeah.
have some commodities
That
like later.
perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And I come from Puerto Rico, so I do understand everything that you're saying in Nicaragua and all that. Like, 'cause, I went through
Yeah.
all of that. But we're at the stage where we're sort of like figuring out, especially the where is going to be, because we don't necessarily
Hmm.
want to go back to Puerto Rico. But trying to figure out where the where. But for the past, I don't know, maybe 2 years, a year, is when I've finally sort of like looking up and sort of taking a breather and seeing the world, because before it was just like just me in the studio just working. And 100% agree with what you're saying. Like I did a horse drive a couple months ago in what was it,
Oh, cool.
August. And like I love horses and stuff like that, and I went to Idaho, and we did it was like a whole week, so we'll drive the horses. It was like 50 horses. We're driving through the mountains for a couple of days, and we'll camp. But there's like no cell reception. You go to the bathroom in an house or the river. The showers are in
Yeah.
the
Cool.
river. All the foods were cooked on a fire pit. And it
Yeah.
was great, man. Like I got back, and I actually, like, my body felt stronger because of that week break that I had. Because I go to the gym like 5, 6 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got back, and I'm like lifting more weight without any pain or anything. And I was like, oh man, this is
Yeah.
great. But
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now that
yeah.
reminds me of a story my buddy told me too, because he literally did what you described. He's a wild little boy though. He goes like does some crazy shit. So him and his friends like went out into the wilderness, and like he said, like what you just described, like didn't have cell phone service. So
Mhm.
he literally just like, all right, well, just turn off my phone then. And he said it was like they were out there. Him and his friends were out there for a week. Basically, had no access to the world. And he was like, dude, my mind was so open. I was like, I felt super free, and like it was great. We would just swim in the river, and like we would camp out and watch the stars. And then he was just describing this one. He's like, I loved it. And I mean, you rarely hear people talk about that and have bad
Yeah.
experiences. It seems pretty obvious that uh, our species was not meant to live the way we've currently built. I think the people that are more indigenous have it right. We're kind of built to just be around nature. We're kind of built around being bored. So you have to kind of socialize and interact with the people around you.
Right.
You
Right.
can't be distracted by media. Like you make the entertainment with your friends and family. Um, you know what I mean? And to me, it's like, it's very obvious the more I look like pull back and look at communities and societies that thrive, they are typically more modest and more like they're just not chasing something. There's a genuine value and content.
Yes.
Like I don't need any more, and I'm happy with what I got.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I was closer to when I was living in Nicaragua versus anywhere in the states. And so, and I will say, just to give America a fair shot, there are definitely like mountain towns and like forest towns that are just pretty rural and probably very similar to what I'm describing. Like they do also have a lot of these challenges that are still rooted in the states, and they still may be very affordable. I just don't know where they're at,
Right.
and I don't know if I have time to look for them. And so for me, it's probably going to be easier to do something like that, like look for these places in the states that has the right mix. Because I'm sure that city or town it's like somewhere in the middle of like not Alaska,
Yeah.
but like like somewhere in the middle of like Idaho, maybe. I don't know. We drove through New Mexico, for instance,
Mm.
and there was just nothing but ghost towns. I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this makes sense. If there was aliens, this would be a good place to hide them because there's like nobody out here. What the hell? I like literally drove through the state and went through like two towns, and they both looked incredibly empty. Um, and so, like, I'm sure there's something because there's those types of towns that exist. But yeah, for me, like, I'm with you. Like, whenever people do these types of things, it just seems like a good thing. So even in moderation, I know some people, like
Right.
you said, like you and I have put a lot of time into kind of building ourselves up, and we have good, you know, uh, career in front of us because of what we've done, prior. There might be some people that are still trying to gain that, and I would say that if I could do anything differently, because I also am with you, I don't really have much regrets because it does give you perspective. But if I was to do anything differently, maybe it would just be that, just be more active. Maybe
Mm.
that's it. But other than that, because I think that would have probably helped me because there was nights and days where I just all I did was draw and paint, and I do believe that there's a detrimental effect.
Mm-hmm.
It catches up with you eventually, and you
Yep.
just pass out for like a whole week because you're just so fucking exhausted. And there could be a different version of that where, every other week I just take a break and spend a few days just doing other stuff rather than just drawing all day. Because like you said, when you came back from your trip, you came back stronger. So
Mm-hmm.
there is something about just true hibernation
Yeah.
of like your crazy work ethic. So you could just like let that shit sleep for a bit, then come back to it. But just like you, like there's years where I didn't really take any real break,
Right.
and I don't know if that genuinely sped up my abilities, because like if you look at the hours, it looks like it should have, but I wonder if I would have taken breaks, if it would have been like what you just described. I come
Mm.
back stronger because you let your mind rest, just like you
Right.
would let your muscles rest, and then now your mind comes back with fresh clarity and now can ingest more information more healthily versus just brute force shoving that into your brain. Um, which some of that still spills over, some of that might have been missed. Um, but I mean, even with that opportunity of going back in time and saying, "Hey, move more and touch grass more" or whatever, I don't know if I would do that because again, it that perspective is gained because
Yeah.
when working super hard is not the best strategy, um, and you know why because you felt it. That there's something different about that. There's just something different about knowing the oven is hot because you touched it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that. But yeah, if I was to give any advice to my past self, that would probably be the only one, and that's why I'm telling people now. It's like I generally think there's diminishing returns. Like you can't put like 12-hour days for a month without some pain points. There's something in the bite you in the ass, but at the same time, you can't only spend a 1 hour a month and expect great skill.
Right.
So there's
Right.
definitely a balance, right?
Right.
You
Right.
can't just go all in or all out. You gotta like there's got to be a balance, whatever works for you. Um, but yeah, I mean that's ultimately it. I got only like maybe I just looked at the time. I got like maybe like 10 more minutes.
10 minutes. All
And I
right.
gotta bounce out of here. So if you have any one of those awesome questions you want to ask me, or any one
Uh,
of them, or any two of
you
them,
answered them all already
I'll
with
try my
with
best.
that
Oh, really?
conversation, but No, but I wanted to
Okay,
ask you
cool.
real quick. Well, I wanted to add something that you were mentioning about this towns was the so let me backtrack a little bit. Um,
Okay.
one of my purposes for like this talks is like I don't want it to feel very like interviewee type thing, which because you have done like dozens of those, and so with the people that I'm talking, I think it also ties with what we were talking because I think somehow, especially during COVID and after COVID, we've lost the and throughout the years the sense of community and like because when you go to these towns, it's not really much about me. It's more about us because we're living in a small town. We gotta take care of each other type thing, and
Yeah.
with these conversations, I'm trying to bridge, even if it's just a little bit, the gap of um, talking to other artists, no matter their perspective, and sort of connect in some sort of way. So I do prepare questions and stuff, but I don't really. I like when the conversation sort of grows organically and we just chat for half an hour, 45 minutes. Because I
Yeah. Yeah.
know with even you're not answering questions, quote unquote, you're still adding value to whoever listens. With whatever the stories are.
Sorry, my phone's going off.
Also good.
That's my
Um,
alarm to go to sleep, but I'm not going to go to sleep.
yeah, that ain't happening. Um,
Yeah.
um, but I remember 4 years ago well, I think it was 4 years ago. You won the Limits Grand Prix competition. You remember that in
Yeah,
Japan?
dude. In Japan. Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah. Yeah.
was great. I saw
That was
the
so fun.
video and it's crazy because I think the back and I when I think about it, it's like you're probably the only person that could have won that because you're really
Nah.
notorious and known for your speed, right? Um,
Yeah, no, I can. I am very appreciative of that comment, but I can think of a few people who could have definitely gave me a run for the money.
yeah,
But I think the competitors at that competition, maybe only one of them really had a chance.
yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, I am known for speed painting, and it's like concept artists are also that's what we do. We come up with stuff like right there and then, and so it was really I was really at an advantage because of this.
yeah,
But like I said, there are definitely people that I know who could be much more effective. But that's exactly what the people who brought me on was thinking. Though they're like, because one of the guys, Cynics, he's a pretty popular YouTuber. I'm sure you know of him.
mm,
He he saw that thing. He thought it was awesome, and he's like, "Bro, I know a person who would just dominate that," and that's he thought it was going to be me. So he said,
yeah,
"Hey, would you do this thing?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, sounds like a lot of fun," and it was a lot of fun. I went to
yeah,
Japan. I got to hang out with the people. All the artists that competed were super friendly. It was freaking super wonderful. Um, but yeah, dude, I was like, this is if there was anything that I was building towards, this is definitely something that I feel like I'm like perfectly slotted
yeah,
to
yeah,
to benefit in, and so I did. I ended up winning, which was crazy. I honestly thought I lost it because I thought the guy that I went against, um, I thought he was actually really good, and so I was pretty nervous going against him. Not to say that I didn't think any of the other artists were any good, but I'm like literally super fast painter, and
yeah,
so uh, they were going to have to double time to keep up, and I think because of I think his name was JB Styles. Like he kind of did more like a line art illustrator style. So because it was like more illustrative in like ink, he was able to kind of draw very quickly. Um, and it was good. Like it's kind of like a Kim Jong Gi vibe, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
Like where it's like, he's not painting it, but like it's still incredibly impressive. It's a very beautiful piece of art. So he had a very similar vibe with what he did. I think he drew like a whole car crash scene in
yeah. I
the
think I
20
remember that.
minutes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It was cool, but I was like, I'm gonna beat him by animating my thing. That's how I'm gonna try to win this. And I still felt like I don't think it was enough. But when I watched it back later, when people really because they thought I messed up,
Right.
they're he's redrawing it. Oh no, he must have messed up. And I knew there's a 10-minute moment where they let voting come in, so I had 10 minutes to kind of like set the stage that I'm actually animating. And so the first 10 minutes, people thought I was like failing. That he must have made a new choice. Oh no, like he keeps messing up. And then when I hit the 10, I looked at the time, I was like, okay, 10 minutes. And I started showing the frames. I started creating the frames and then started fixing the frames for the last 10 minutes. And that's people, oh, he's animating. And then I think that's what might have got me
Yeah,
the
that was the
win.
edge. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was that
That's
fact that I
cool.
was actually animating it was a cool twist in the drama, right? And I think that helped. But if I was to be a judge, I honestly think that the other competitor had a better image. To be
Yeah.
honest, like, and I'm not trying to be humble. I generally thought he had a better image,
Mm.
but it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
I think I got to get going soon.
let me ask you one last question. So because I'm super curious about this, the reason why you wanted to paint so fast was because I'm sort of like thinking in a more strategic way. So I want to know
Yeah,
what your input is because maybe as a freelancer sometimes you get, or most of the time you get paid by pieces that you make or images. Was the reason
yeah,
to bring down the time that you spend on a piece in order to value what they
yeah.
painted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, what started it was a comment that my teacher once said. He was like, "You can either be fast or you can be good. You can't be both." And I thought that was like crazy. Of
Yeah,
course, you could be both. You just
right.
got to practice, you know. And so I got really good, and then I got really fast. Right. So I focused on getting
Mm,
good at painting. So I always tell my students, like, because they see me do like a paint over or a demo, and it's like in 5 minutes, it's like better than what they could have done in the whole day, you know? So they feel really subconscious and insecure about this. And I'm like, no, 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 don't. Like, I'm taking advantage of my ability to do this quickly so I can teach you effectively.
right.
But but I work with people who don't do this, and they're great and they're amazing. Like, there's some people who takes weeks to paint one painting, but at the end of it, it's better than anything that I could do in an hour. Right? I would have to also probably spend like a good amount of time, maybe not weeks, but it wouldn't be like hours. You know, actually, people know me for like these like quick 20-minute, 30-minute paintings, and yet that is. Maybe I'll
Uh
figure out a way.
oh.
I think it started. It's more of like physics of it now. Like, is it like, am I
Right,
physically capable of
right.
drawing? You know, um, but I don't want arthritis, so I'm not in any rush to get super fast. But uh, yeah, I tell them like, and honestly, like the standard level associates, like I think doing a character design from start to finish should probably take about 2 to 3 weeks. You know, and this is including reviews and paint overs and all that
Right,
good
right.
stuff. And so if you're able to get one really good image in a matter of a few weeks, then you're at a good pace. Like, you're at a reasonable pace. Um, Maybe someone like me, I could do it in like, yeah, days. But again, I'm seasoned. I've been doing this for freaking ever, so I have a lot of context of what it means to do good work and work with
Right.
people. But I also like actively want it to be fast, and a lot of it is pragmatic, because if I can get a lot of the work I need to get done in a few hours, then I have the rest of the day I can hang out with my family.
Yep.
And so it doesn't work as well when you're art directing, right? Because if you're art directing, that's not like a painting. Like, I don't know how you speed run helping people get to the finish line, like managing other things.
Right,
Like, that
right.
just requires you to truly just be engaged in most conversations that are around the project. Um, but if I'm just doing concept art, oh yeah, you bet your ass I can do that stuff in no time, right? Illustration takes me a little bit longer because it's a lot more to it. But still, I could probably do a good job, with very
Yeah.
limited time. So yeah, for sure. The root of it was not necessarily that, but the current goal of it is definitely that, of like being more efficient, be more on top of my workflow. Um, just gets the work done faster. And like you said, if it's a per piece thing, then it's like, okay, if you get commissioned, let's say even at a lower rate, like let's say, hey, we want you to do a character design. We only have $500 per character, right? And if you can get 4 characters done in a week, then it's 2 grand. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And
Yep.
it's
Yep.
it's no skin off my back. And so it just depends. Because I think if it takes you a month to do a character, then $500 is just not enough. I
Right.
get it. But yeah, you'll be surprised if you can just be a little bit more efficient and more fast, that you can provide a high quality piece of artwork for your client, and then they'll pay you at this reasonable margin for the time that you spent. Like you're almost now getting paid hundreds of dollars an hour because you're
Yeah.
getting this stuff done so
Yeah.
quickly. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think like that is something that I do think about now more than ever. And honestly, um, when it comes to like they come with a predetermined price for a piece, that comes in handy. But now it's starting to become a thing where if I work for a project and they ask me like my hourly rate, it's like
Mm,
impossible to tell them
yeah.
because I can't be like, oh yeah, like it's going to be $500 an hour because maybe I want to get paid $1,000 for that piece. So that's like 2 hours I spend on it. Like it just seems crazy to ask for because they're going to take 8 hour days for a
Right,
week. Like
right, right.
this guy's
Yeah, it
crazy.
doesn't
I
work.
was like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, it's going to be a few hours. And so I do day rates. Day rates are so far where I'm at, and I think it's time to even do just full on project rates. It's like, when do you need it done? This is how much it's going to cost you to get it done by that
Right.
time. And this is speaking for like the bigger studios, not like the small mom and pop shops. The small shops, I just work with whatever they got, and I just do it very quickly.
Right. Right.
Um, but the bigger studios, I'm a little bit more like, yeah, of course, you guys got the cash. If you want this expertise, you got to pay for it. And so, and I think people should respect that too. I think a lot of people who are up and coming should
Yeah.
remember what I'm saying here. Like you should definitely value your time. And so, but hey, look, I gotta actually get out of here now for sure.
Yeah,
We
man,
went a
for
little
sure.
over.